Okay. Can you hear me? Please, can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So can we just go straight to the slide? Can you please go straight to the slide?
Better. Let's go straight to the slide.
Yeah, please. Okay, so this evening we're going to be discussing fire safety and management. We're going to be looking at what we need to do to ensure that we manage the risks of fire within our space. And in trying to do this, we need to understand how to manage or maintain the fire equipment. To this class. And this evening, I will start by trying to let you understand that fire is both a friend and an enemy. Fire is a friend because we use fire for eating purpose, to ensure that the space is warm, to even ensure that we can get some food to eat and what have you. But in some cases where the fire itself then goes out of hand, then obviously there will be losses. And those losses are those things that we don't want, are those things we want to actually guard against, to mitigate. All right. So for us within the building, we need to design safety into the building. So we need to have what we call safety in design, SID, where you ensure that even the building has factored in safety into it. So when I say safety now, it's not just about fire prevention, but also fire protection and fire evacuation. And in the best case scenario, even fire extinguishing, or should I say firefighting. So we need to have a building, whether it is new or existing, that gives the occupants some ability or leverage to be able to prevent fire, to be able to be protected against fire, to be able to even evacuate in case of fire, to be able to detect when fire has actually started, when fire is at the incipient stage, and of course to be able to help with either the suppression or the putting off of the fire itself. All right. So if you look at fire safety as it is, if you look at fire is an unwanted event, right? So just like an accident as we discussed yesterday. So we look at fire, the question will be then, what is fire itself? How can we define the word fire? Then when you then say fire safety, how do you ensure there is safety of the fire? Safety is freedom from hazard or danger. So how do you ensure that there is freedom from the danger or from the risks of fire? The management means that there is actually a system in place. There is a way we do what we want to do. All right. There is a pattern, there is a routine, there is a repeat of actions, so that then forms the management structure or management system around the fire safety. So what we're then saying is, how do we ensure that we don't have an incident such as fire, to ensure that the occupants or even the asset itself is free from the danger of destruction or the consequence of fire? And how do we ensure that this becomes part and parcel of what we do in everything we try to do at work or at home? All right. Okay. So To do this, I think we need to start to say that we need to have firefighting equipment. So for this session, we'll be looking at fire safety management, and we're going to be zooming in into the maintenance of the firefighting equipment. All right. So a firefighting equipment is what we use, to fight the fire, of course, in the event of an outbreak. And this is to ensure that there is protection of lives, properties, the assets, and even the environment. Because when there is fire, then there will be smoke, and of course, smoke can then result in the release of some toxins that are actually harmful to our environment. So, fire is not just about the human health or human lives. It's also about the assets. It's also about the environment. And most importantly, it's also about the continuity of the business continuity. Because when there is a loss, it's possible the company or the organization may not be able to recover from that loss. And if they don't recover from the loss, it will then lead to, even the loss of livelihood. So if you look at so we carry out an impact assessment of fire or a fire outbreak, we could see that it could even lead to, of course, loss of income, which can also lead to even the loss of quality education, or loss of good life, good or quality life, for the victims or the family of the victims. So the fire you see today, don't just stop at that. It's possible that when a company is engulfed in fire, that some of the employees might not get a good job ever again, in their lives, and that could also affect, the quality of the education that the man or the woman has actually planned to give his or her child, and of course, then that leads to even the bigger society problem, societal problem, So we then have issues around banditry, around Boko Haram, around kidnapping and robbery, around again, street thugs and whatever, just because there was a fire incident some many years back that denied that person access to quality education. So don't just look at it as a one-off issue. Fire has a deeper negative impact that could lead to losses. I mean, beyond losses, that could lead to loss of quality life. So the equipment we need can either be passive or active. Passive means that somebody needs to actually activate the equipment. That means the equipment is actually on a manual mode, e.g. fire extinguisher. So even if there is a fire or a fire blanket here and there is fire, it needs someone that can operate and use of it in the proper way to actually operate it before it can then, do the job that has been designed to do. So that's passive. The fire will continue to burn until the equipment is triggered. Passive equipment. But we have what we call the active equipment. These are equipment that can actually sense and help to suppress the fire, so you can detect and suppress the fire, and even in most cases fight the fire. While we are still trying to bring in the fire brigade, that's the fire service and things like, and people like that. So your smoke detectors, your heat detectors, your water sprinkler system or automatic sprinkler system are active equipment. The passive ones include fire extinguishers, fire hose reel, even your fire hydrants. They are passive. They need someone trained to actually operate them. But for the active ones, they do what they are designed to do. So the sprinkler system is going to actually release water via an umbrella. That's the sprinkler head from the umbrella and spread, and there's a coverage, the water spread coverage, that sprinkler head has been designed for. The smoke detector will actually alert people and let you, whether it is addressable or conventional. So if it's conventional, that means it will only sound. You get the sound of the alarm. The alarm is going to, on the panel, is going to show the location where the fire is actually happening or burning, and that is all. but the addressable system is going to even tell you what you need to do. So if it's a multi-story building, it's going then. So if we have a 5-floor building, so and fire is actually has actually started on say floor 2, for instance, it can actually ask floor 3 to evacuate, floor 4 and 5 to be on standby, floor 1 to evacuate after floor 3. All right, just to ensure that there's no stampede. We call this the GIFs, the general emergency evacuation procedure. So we don't allow the 5 or 10 floors to evacuate at the same time, because they're going to actually be meeting on the staircase, and there could be some stampede, some push here and there, and you even have more casualty outside fire than within fire, right? But so that's for addressable system, where it can actually announce there is fire, tell you the floor where the fire is, tell you what to do actually in the event of fire, and dictate how we can all evacuate. However, the conventional detectors or the alarm panel will not tell you this, but of course, we also show where the fire has happened. So for every building, write this down. There are 4 things that should be present, and minimum of 2, and in most cases for good practice, minimum of 3 should be present out of the 4. For fire safety management, I said there are 4 headers, 4 pillars that should be present. All right, in every building and in any building, every and any building. All right, and if we want to say we have a safe workplace, then we should have 3/4, 3 out of 4. There must be fire prevention system, which is actually via education and enforcement. I repeat, 1, first pillar under the fire safety management, fire prevention. And I said there must be fire prevention through education and enforcement. So people need to know what can cause fire. Yesterday, I did mention the fire triangle. I'm going to go deeper into that in a couple of minutes. People need to know what can cause fire. Hence, they know what they need to do to prevent fire from happening. For instance, you can't be carrying out some hot work or naked flame ignition around flammable materials. It's going to lead to bigger fire. I mean, you can't be cooking in a petrol station, literally. You shouldn't come and be overloading the electrical sockets. You shouldn't come to work and be handling naked cables. You shouldn't come to work and permit hot work, that's welding work or grinding or what have you, to happen close to flammable materials. You shouldn't come to work and be smoking indiscriminately everywhere and anywhere. No. And that's where, again, I said, it's by education, that means they need to know, and it's by enforcement, and you need to discipline. We need to be clear on this, clear. If you have people you don't even need to have people that smoke before you identify smoking spots, right? You should please identify smoking spots within your facility. Have the right signage placed around this smoking spots, and please have the right receptacle, cigarette receptacle, the ashtray around the smoking spots, right? So it could even just be a metallic bucket with sharp sand in it. That's an ashtray. It will ensure that fire does not just happen, and ensure that and the cigarette packs are not thrown into the ashtray. Otherwise, you're gonna have people smoking and just indiscriminately just throwing the cigarette butts on the floor or even within the waste bin, and that could then lead to fire, because that cigarette butt is going to smother, is going to burn slowly, then boom, you have a fire. So I said, first pillar, fire prevention through education and enforcement, right? Second pillar, Fire protection through engineering. Fire protection. So the material of construction, the design of the workplace should allow for delayed fire outbreak. When I use the word delay, I mean delayed. You can't have a building constructed using highly flammable materials. For some of us, now again, we're going into December. We try to decorate or use the outward decorative material. And some even within the office area, within the occupied space, the living room and what have you, we still have materials that we know can actually catch fire. In fact, if we have our way, we say, okay, maybe the Christmas tree should not, be used any longer, because you've got a lot of Christmas trees from poorly manufactured process that would then even ignite. What we're saying is that the material used to construct the building, the selected materials should be fire resistant, from the door to the ceiling to the paint to the decorative material and what have you. And in some cases, when you don't have that luxury, because now maybe the building is actually leased or even rented, so you can't actually change a lot of things. We're also saying that don't then come and attach, don't come and attach additional flammable materials. So we have people going to the office and maybe the interior decorator, or they just feel in their wisdom to put up some decoration within the room, and you then add highly flammable materials. Even for the wooden material, they have different burning points based on the source of the wood or furniture. You can't have a place and just have cushion seats everywhere, because we're trying to make the office look like home. We're bringing in the 21st century office concept. We're not saying we should not do that. I love it. I love being in the office and looks like home, right? But we also need to think around the fire safety. You can't just come and rock everywhere within the office. No, we can't just have an office. Yes, open space, perfect. But be sure that when there is when there is fire, then the ease of spread of the fire or the fire travels faster. So it is easier for the fire to spread than when you have enclosed rooms or office area. So what I'm trying to say is fire protection, material of construction is important, especially based on the kind of activities that are actually happening within that space. 3, fire detection and suppression, also through engineering. I'm talking about the 4 pillars under which the fire safety management that I've discussed about initially are standing. I said there is fire prevention, which is number 1, which is being able to educate and enforce fire safety principles within the workspace. Secondly, I said fire protection through engineering, material of construction, material of design, the concept of design, and things. Your design philosophy must aid fire prevention, must support lowering the risks of fire happening in that space. I said 3 is fire detection and suppression, the ability to know when fire has started and the ability to actually quench that. So I give to you NFPA 13 and 72. National Fire Protection Association Standard 13 speaks to the automatic water sprinkler system, and Standard 72 of the same NFPA speaks to fire alarming and signaling system, which is the detection, right? So we need to have this in place for us to be able to respond to fire and even quench the fire at the incipient stage. And the 4th pillar is firefighting, and that's where we are. And that's why we are here. And that's where we are. Firefighting. We should be able to fight the fire by having resources within the facility to quench the fire. Fire extinguishers, fire hose reel, of course, fire hydrants, maybe a standby fire truck, and of course, the system of response or corresponding, with the fire service, the fire brigade, whether the state or federal, must be in place, communication. And I said that out of these four things, out of the fire prevention, protection, detection and suppression, and then firefighting, your workplace should have minimum of 3, not 2, 3. So please, some does not cost money, and some actually do. So if you are to educate and enforce safety in the workplace, it doesn't cost money. It only costs time. Yes, time is money. It's also a resource. But I mean, you don't need to issue POs. Fire protection, again, fire protection can be based on the competence level of either your designers or even your building consultants, maybe the architect or the MEP engineer, the mechanical and electrical and plumbing engineers, and what have you. You need to engage competent people. I'm not advertising any architectural firm, but I'm only saying that you need to engage competent people to do your designs. You need to engage competent people to even when I say design, not just the building construction, but maybe remodeling, refurbishment, whatever you want to do, or even just the interior design. Don't just buy stuff and stock stuff because we need to do it. Now we are employees. We don't have full power over what is existing. What do they need to do? We need to push the case for fire detection and, of course, suppression system. We need to push the case for fire response. For this class, we'll be looking at the extinguisher, the sprinkler, hose reel, and what have you, which are the equipment that we have control over. Next slide, please. So yesterday we did speak around, or we spoke about the fire triangle. Yeah, so it's still the same thing. So when there is the coming together of combustible material in the presence of oxygen and ignition source or heat, there will be fire. And that fire entails the fuel being consumed. So the fuel is burning. The fuel can be solid, like wood, like chair, like foam, can be liquid, like petrol, like diesel, or even the aviation transmission kerosene, the ATK aviation fuel, or the household kerosene, the HHK. So it can be any of these things, all right? And it can also be in the gaseous states, like the propane, butane, even acetylene gas. That's that can actually burn. But it can't happen if you don't have the right concentration of oxygen. So oxygen has to be present, the fuel has to be there, and the ignition temperature must be reached, must be attained. As soon as you have the ignition temperature, if that temperature is sustained, then it moves into what we call the burning point. There's the temperature at which a material will catch fire. That's the ignition temperature. There's the temperature at which the fire will be sustained. That's the fire point. So before the material
have these elements in their proper condition. Enough oxygen, enough fuel in the right mixture, and of course, the ignition temperature. Next slide, please. I'm not going to be speaking to these classes yet.
Next slide. Okay, and so I was speaking to the proper condition. So for oxygen, it has to be between 18 to 21%. So about 20 in the air or in the atmosphere, you're going to have something that is, that is supporting the life of the fire. All right. For heat, the possible sources could be naked flame, could be faulty electrical wiring, could be heating elements such as iron boiling ring, hot plates, electric stove, electric cooker, things that can actually burn, if they are left unattended to. Next slide, please. Okay, I've explained this, right? I don't think I need to say anything again on this. And that's talking around the solid, liquid, and gaseous state of the foil. Next slide, please. Okay, so because we now know, so what we've just done now is fire safety education. We've tried to understand that 3 elements of fire need to come together, and when they come together in proper condition, such as oxygen being present in the right percentage, again depending on the atmosphere, such as the fuel being in the right bulkiness, density of the material itself, and of course the state of the material, or that's the ignition temperature, whether it's the heating or the defective electrical appliance, or even naked flame, such as the smoked cigarette butt. That's thing that we need to look into, and we need to kill. We need to as much as we can. And to address them, what do we need to do? That's firefighting preparedness. What do we need to do? We need to be prepared. Then how do we get prepared? We need to understand that fire needs to be detected. So you need to know that the fire is burning for you to be able to respond to the burning fire, right? And save and become a superhero, right? So that means that we need to then equip the building with the right equipment. So first thing is procure, buy. If you have them existing, all right, what you need to do is to maintain. So the smoke detectors, you need to have the smoke detectors. You need to have the fire alarm panel. In kitchen area, you need to have the heat detectors. All right. What again? You need to have, in an easily accessible area, you need to have the alarm sounder, alarm bell. You need to have the master blaster. You need to have the break glass, something that will even make people to be able to, activate the smoke detector, and of course the fire alarm panel in case of fire. So these things need to be in place for you to then be able to safely, detect the fire and notify people to evacuate. But if you don't train people, even if the alarm is sounding, they won't know what to do. All right. So you need to train the workers on how to, conduct the search and rescue, how to, respond to the fire, even leaving the office area or the space, depending on what you do, as soon as they hear the sound of the alarm. People should also know that evacuation is methodical. You don't just hear the sound of the alarm and about 100 people want to pass through the staircase at the same time. All right. So we need to train our workers. We need to conducting fire drill is a form of training. So you must conduct at least one fire drill every year. Let me announce to you that is not. I'm not saying this because we want you to feel good. That is the law. All right. So the Nigerian fire building regulation 2013 is requesting or has requested that at a minimum one fire drill must be conducted in a year. For some of us, we even do two. Evacuate the building and see how the response is going to be, because on the day of the fire, people only behave the way they are trained to behave. Alone. Also, the extinguishers, and depending on the size of your company, you may then also have fire hydrants. That's the water system installation, and people need to know how to roll the hose, plug in the hose, have the pump set in auto mode, and of course, to staff, so everybody know what they are supposed to do. So at this point, let me drop this. So there's what we call the Incident Command System, ICS. It's a proven method of fire outbreak, all right? Or not just fire incident. And so what we call it Incident Command System, because we need to ensure that people have assigned roles, and there is a command that there is someone on site that has taken or that is taking responsibility for what is happening on site. If it's a multiple site organization, meaning that you have an head office somewhere, say in Lagos, it's not a problem. So you have the command center or the incident command room at the site. So you need to establish at the site level who is going to be commanding the incident, who is going to be relating, who is going to be ensuring that the emergency response plan is properly, followed. All right. So then at the group level or at the head office level, you can also have the incident command system that takes care of external communications and of course provision of resources. So so as I speak to you now, I'm in Ibadan. If an incident happened in this factory where I'm seated now, I'm not going to be granting interview to anybody. If there's a fire incident, and even if the factory is taken out, because we have the Department of External Affairs that should handle that. All right. So I'll just tell you, you can direct all your inquiries to XYZ and maybe provide an email address or something. And that's all. That's what happens at a group level. So outside your site, that is what should happen. Relationship with media should happen outside that site if it's not a single site. But if it's a single site, means that that's the whole organization. It's still not a problem. You have designated people in perhaps human resources or public affairs or government relations or external affairs, whatever you call them in your organization. All right. Depending on the size of the organization again, you can then allow them to relate with who they want to relate with. While you, as a maybe incident commander on site, need to relate with the host community, the fire service, even the employees that are endangered, and people like that. So we should know what we need to do. So in no particular order, there is the search and rescue team. So the people that go to do what we call the sweeping. So when there is an incident, it's possible some people get terrified that they just freeze. So it's just like you facing a fear. There are two common things that happen when you are faced with a fearful situation, when you are terrified, when you are afraid. You want to either flee, which is to run away, or you freeze, which is stay put. Most times, these two things happen. There is a fire door, there's an accident, and people cannot even move. They are frozen. It's not that maybe their legs are broken or something, but they are even just witnesses or observers, or they're just around when that incident has happened. But the honest truth is, they can't even move an inch. It's like being in the house, God forbid, and to just suddenly see a masked guy with a gun, or maybe on the street. You have two options: run away or stay. No matter is, you will most likely stay because it's a gun. Most likely you're gonna stay. So that frozen moment needs to be unfrozen. Or you can flee. You can run away and then decide to run back into the fire. All right. That again is an unsafe behavior. So we need to have this search and rescue team that also function as as the directioner or a team that gives direction, to the muster point. So the search and rescue team or the guys go in there and see whether somebody is trapped, endangered, or cannot just move, or needs support to get out of that situation. And what they do is they ensure those kind of people get to the muster points, and if they need medical attention, they ensure that happens. Again, depending on the size of the facility, if you have ambulance on site, so the ambulance have to actually be on standby when and if there is an incident. And so if you see somebody, if you meet somebody on the floor, someone has collapsed, they has passed out because of the sight of the fire or the sound of the alarm, the person is moved straight on a stretcher, moved into the ambulance where medical aids, first aid can then be administered before he or she is transported to the hospital. If that's not the case, yes, we still need to move the person and take him or her, to the hospital, right? So those need to be assigned. So the first thing is search and rescue. Secondly, we have a group called communication. When there is fire, if you're in Lagos, somebody must call 767 or 112. That's the emergency number for Lagos. 767 or 112. And the person making that call must be calm enough to describe the incident, describe the location of the company, and give some other basic information. 767 112 is a control center number where you can actually relate what has happened, and the control center itself will then know who to alert. Is it the police officer? Is it fire safety? Is it the fire service or what have you? So we need to have this group briefed ahead of time. We need to have them in place, maybe 3 people across different shifts, depending again if you run shift system, maybe you want to run a 24 hours operation, all right? And ensure that they know this, they know this number by heart, and they can call on via their phone. It is actually toll free, all right? First one is search and rescue, SAR, SAR, search and rescue. Second team is the communication team. So the third team will be the head count. Head count at the muster. Some people, you need to account for lives in your facility. You can't just operate a system where people come to work, they don't sign in, they don't sign out, they don't tap in, they don't tap out, they don't log in, they don't log nothing, they just come in, they go out. For security purpose, that's not even safe. Now, for safety purpose, fire safety purpose, then that is a disaster waiting to happen, because we need to be able to account. In most cases, most organizations, in practice, actually even have departments, people sit, based, or the seat arrangements being based on the different departments within the facility, right? So at the muster points, there must be head count. We're able to account for everyone that has come to work, such that if there is someone that is missing, you can then relay that message to the search and rescue team to look for the person within the conveniences, under the table, where again, anywhere that these people might be hiding. And number 4, the fourth team is the firefighting team, the fire response. Some people must actually carry, they must carry the fire extinguishers and go after the monster caught fire. They must be able to have the confidence via training and exposure, to approach the scene of fire and fight it correctly. We are under the role assignment to staff prior to the start of a fire, and decided to just drop the ICS, the incident command system, there, so that so when you see this, it's not just, oh, what do I have to assign? I've mentioned the 4 rules that you need to assign: search and rescue, communication, head count, firefighting. All right. Okay, let's move. So again, you need to plan for fire prevention and the resource that we use to fight fire. So at the beginning of the year, manna fell from heaven. Yes, I agree, but not all the times. At times, and most times, we need to work for the manna. All right. So we need to budget for fire. That's what I'm going. We can't be talking about fire safety, equipment, and maintenance, and we are operating under zero budget. Fire is not an expense. Maybe that's our thoughts. That, oh, we are spending money. You're not spending money when it comes to fire. You're actually protecting your future. We're not spending. So if you have a finance guy that feels the budget is just too much, we need to slash it. We are protecting. That's what we can use to protect the multi-million or multi-billion naira operation that we are managing. We can't afford to have the building go in flames. Yes, maybe when we are doing the business continuity, we can start talking of cloud storage and what have you for our documents. But I'm even saying in the present, we can't afford to lose what we have. So you need to budget. How many experts do you have? How many do you actually need? So how are we filling the gap? How do we service? Someone was asking me yesterday, you need to service twice a year. All right. So how much? So can we get a vendor to actually submit a quote? Then we can use that to, to prorate how much we're going to be spending annually. And that should be included in your annual spend as a department or as an organization, depending on your size. The training, the education must happen. The awareness must happen. How to use the extinguisher must be taught. All right. Okay. And again, we need to have the building layout. Every building needs to have the building, the floor layout, not just the building layout now, the floor layout displayed. So because when people come, 2 things are going to happen. So it's actually for rescue and for firefighting. So by rescue, I mean evacuation. Somebody has come into this hotel. He has lodged in, what's that popular room? Is it 306? He has lodged in room 306. And there is the sound of the alarm. How is he or she going to navigate to the ground floor, to the muster point? That should be visible from the room. You should have the room map, the floor map, and say, okay, you are here, this is where you're going to, this is the exit door, and this leads to the staircase, and you are out. It has to be clear. And that's to be clear to our workers. Same thing if the fire guys come and they want to go to the top floor. They don't need many people telling them, oh, you can take the back door. No, you can take the front door. No, take this door. No. From the building layout, the guys can quickly, get someone that is familiar with the building to just run them through and say, okay, if you pass through this exit, you can see there's a door. You can see that you can do this. And the guys can then go in there and fight the fire. Detection of fire is key. suppression of fire is key. Training the workers, very key. Assigning roles and responsibilities, mandatory. Having the resource planning, having a budget. Let me use the word budget now. And of course, allocating time, not just budget in terms of financial budget alone, but also human resource budget. So I know, okay, on a monthly basis, we are supposed to carry out trainings. So fire safety training is coming up in January and it's also coming up in March. And so you've actually planned for this. And your L&D guys, your learning and development guys, or the training coordinators must make this happen. If you don't have that in your facility, then the line manager must make it happen. If I need 2 people from the engineering team to be trained, they need to be available on the agreed date to be trained. That is leadership commitment to health and safety, which also includes fire safety. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll take this slide and maybe we go on 5 minutes break, or what do you think? Or do you want us to just rush through this? Okay, so strategic actions towards, can you please go back? Strategic actions towards firefighting preparedness. By this, we mean that you need to have a proper document. I like using Excel sheet for this, where you list the activities that can lead to fire. You then put in the resource that you need to do, what you need to do to prevent the fire from happening, and look at the likelihood and severity, the impact of that fire if it happens. Then you put in the control measures, and of course you put in the cost of the control measures, right? And you factor in your control, under your control measures, you factor in the safety consideration for firefighters and for the public. And from your risk assessment, you're able to predict the risks of fire and people that has been assigned under that role assignment, have been assigned to respond to the fire incidents when it happens. Okay, so let me allow us go on, say, 5 minutes break, or do you want us to continue? I'm open to whatever you want.
We can take the break, sir.
Okay. So please, can we go on 5 minutes? So we're going to come back at is it 6:07? Okay, please. 6:07, the class will continue. Thank you. Okay, so can we continue, please? Next slide.
Yes, we can. Let's go ahead.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Can you hear me? So,
okay.
Yeah, we can continue now. Okay, so there are some NFPA standards that we need to take note of, while working with fire safety equipment. Basically, because the design, please can you go to the next slide? Basically because the design and maintenance of these fire fighting equipment are based on the globally acceptable designs. So the fire extinguishers are, maintained via the NFPA standard 10. So NFPA 10 standard, it tells us all we need to know around fire extinguishers, and of course, even how we need to maintain or manage such extinguishers. And maybe it's worthy of note at this point to say that the way the Americans have actually classified or categorized the fire classes is not the same as the way the UK system has actually classified this. So what's been shown here, the class A, B, DK is actually the American standard, which is pretty not what all of us imbibe in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we prefer the UK standard, even though the maintenance, can also be, based on the American standard. Please, can I go to the next slide? So the automatic water sprinkler system is based on NFPA 13, and the smoke detection, or what we call the fire alarming and signaling system, is actually based on NFPA 72. Baraka, please, can you give me the next slide? Or should I log out and come back in? All I'm still saying here is strategic actions. Yes, just keep it clear. All right. Okay, so this equipment, again, depending on your own personal risk assessment of your facility, need to be inspected based on the frequency determined by you, but not less than once a month. We need to recap that. If the volatility or the risks that you have envisaged for yourselves will mean that you should inspect your fire extinguishers every week, please do. If it will mean that you need to test your fire pump every day or every shift, so that means 2 or 3 times a day, please do. If it will mean that you need to carry out the testing of the alarm panel or the sounder every week, please do. So saying that once a month is like worst case scenario. No matter how good your system is, no matter how less hazardous your factory is, you need to ensure that these things are inspected. All right. So the main reason why you're even inspecting, apart from safety, is reliability. You want to be sure that anytime you call upon this equipment, anytime you demand to use this equipment, then those equipments are actually available for use. Next slide, please. I'll make it snappy. Okay. So based on the NFPA standard, if you want to inspect a fire extinguisher, then this is what you need to do. Check that the extinguisher is actually accessible. Check that the pressure gauge is on the spindle is on the green for DCP, and for CO2, ensure that the extinguisher is actually heavy. So check for the weight of the extinguisher. Ensure that the extinguisher has proper identification, because again, you should place an extinguisher in a particular location based on the risks of the existing hazard, based on the likelihood of the hazard in those places to become a consequence, to materialize. All right. So where you have electrical panel, I won't expect to go and place a water extinguisher around that place. Within the building, it would then be, a CO2. Outside the building, so maybe close to the transformer, it would then be a DCP, a dry chemical powder kind of extinguisher. All right. So we expect that, okay, that has been done. And if that has been done, you need to then identify that extinguisher either by location or just by numerical or just kind of the numerical identification by numbers. So if I have FE standing for fire extinguisher 01. So let's assume that we have less than 100 in that facility, then we can start the numbering from 01. So that means the highest number will be 99, which is less than 100, right? So if you have fire extinguisher 01, and you have adjudged that, okay, O1 is CO2 placed by the electrical panel within maybe the electrical room. So that's your own identification system, right? On your database, you should also have this spelled out. Fire extinguisher identification and location. For us, we even say fire extinguisher identification, fire extinguisher type, fire extinguisher size, then location. Then you can even have that tracker calling out to the last time it was serviced, or maybe the first time it was bought and time it was serviced last. Then the service time then keeps, keep changing. But the time, the date you bought it remain unchanged. The location, unless the hazard changes, I want to assume that the location will be the same. But if you change the hazard, maybe you introduce additional hazard, then there's also be either a change in location or an updated exhibition list showing, okay, the exhibition that's newly introduced because of the hazard. So when I say change, not actually change in material. For instance, you've got maybe just one electrical panel in there, and you have a 5 kg CO2 exhibition, which you think from the assessment it is sufficient. Then suddenly you brought in additional panels. Most definitely, this single CO2 may not be adequate, may not be sufficient. Then you then bring in additional, or you even change the size. So as against having two different, CO2 5 kg, we decide to have, okay, maybe a 10 kg or 15 kg that is on the wheel, that's on the tire, and you have something smaller just to cater for the fire in that space. So you need to identify the fire extinguisher. That's the point. The extinguisher also needs to have pin and seal at all times. If the seal is not there, then it's assumed that the extinguisher has been used. So you need to also inspect and confirm that it has not been used. The pin is sacrosanct charge of the extinguisher. Again, labeling should be eligible. The writings on the extinguisher should be eligible. You should be able to read that. The service date, when it was last serviced, and the next due date for servicing should be clearly stated on the extinguisher. The on or the hose should be in good condition. The base of the cylinder bottle should not be rusted, and even the extinguisher should not be placed on the floor. Now, depending on what we have here is no more than 1.5, no more than 3 feet. I mean, the height of installation. But you may decide to go lower, again, depending on the average height of the workers or the occupants of that space. So you can be in a Chinese company, for instance, according to the Chinese, and then go and install extinguishers at heights. All right. And again, you don't want to just install at any height. So you need to determine what the average height looks like, within that facility. Then you decide where to put or how to install the fire extinguisher. Next slide, please. Okay, so talking about the inspection, extinguishers, I said every month and every week. I've explained that. But your statutory, that's the mandatory servicing, should happen twice a year, recommended twice a year. Some people may want to just have it done annually because of cost, but I think we prefer twice a year. And twice a year, then after an extinguisher has been discharged, you need to replace it. When I say replace, I mean you need to service it to refill the gas immediately. Don't say, oh, you want to wait for the next round of servicing. No, if an extinguisher is expelled, if it's used, whether accidentally or intentionally, you need to get it serviced as soon as you can. On an annual basis, these guys will be checking for the component of the extinguishers. On a quarterly basis, we recommend you bring these guys in to check your hose reel, your hydrants, the valve, everything, just to make sure that there is water on the line. Some people do that just twice a year as against quarterly. Yes, because of cost, obviously. All right. And also the sprinkler system, you need to inspect on an annual basis. That should be the inspection and testing point, the ITP, for your sprinkler, so that you can actually discharge the water. I'm sure that there is water on the line without you destroying the sprinkler head. You need to ensure that the rated pressure, 10 bar minimum, should be on the on the gauges of both the sprinkler and the hydrant. That is the standard. Next slide, please. Please, next slide. Hello. Is anyone hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Hearing you, sir.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
All right, thank you. Okay. So here we're just trying to, on this slide, we're just trying to reference the legal requirement, which is not contestable. So there is no need for arguments when it comes to fire safety, both from the factory act and of course even the fire safety code. We need to actually put or we need to actually have a building that is safe for the occupants. All right. Annually, we're supposed to have what we call the fire safety certificate, from the state fire service to the fire safety building certificate from the fire service, saying that they have inspected our building and it is in conformance or compliance with the fire safety code or standard. Next slide, please. Your screen is not moving yet. Okay, it has moved. And here we're just speaking to the fire prevention that should be done, via design. So ensuring that we have exit routes which are permanent, which are not obstructed, all right, are not blocked, they are permanent. We should ensure that the fire resistant material are used, and of course, the openings into an exit should be limited. So because of oxygen ingression, you don't want to have a space which is considered as a passage for people during fire emergency, and then have windows or even free air ingression to that space. What happens is that the smoke from the fire will find a way into the space. When I say space now, say that space as maybe a corridor. So evacuation. So let me use the word evacuation corridor. So imagine your evacuation corridor is under threat. Same way the evacuation corridor in Ukraine has always been under threat from Russia. So you can't even pass because there are a lot of openings. There are a lot of enemy attack, which is the oxygen that can come, polluted or contaminated oxygen that can actually come into that space. All right. So we're saying that openings should be limited. You just have a door, and that's all. Next slide, please. And you can see the OSHA code that is linked to that. All right. Okay. So we're talking of even emergency. Please go ahead. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So we're talking of even the emergency routes that we need to have. We're saying that the door should always be unlocked. So most times the emergency doors are not even accessible from outside. However, they're accessible from within, within the building. So we need to ensure that this practice remain and that the door is not even there's no obstruction on the way. All right. So you can actually walk past without collision or fear of collision. And it must be wide enough. So there is a minimum. So the minimum width, height, and everything are actually left to the architects to actually design. So of course they've got their building code. They just ensure that the right standards are actually used, in designing the emergency exit, from the building. So the OSHA 1901.35 is recommended that the ceiling the exit should be at least 2.3 meter high. All right, and then even from the floor, the pressure should not be lower than 2 meters. The exit should be at least underline the word at least 28 inches wide at all points. So it's just a recommendation to say, yes, looking at the standard, you need to do the right things all the time and ensure that there is easy egress of people, from the space. Next slide, please. Here, we're talking about the fire plan or fire prevention plan. We're saying that you should have this documented. It has to be written so that we don't just have people cram the fire plan on their in their brains, but also it is documented and people can run with it. It will be kept in the workplace and it will be made available to employees for review. So the fire plan is key. We soon get to understand what should be in a fire plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so what should we have in the fire plan? Is it the minimum elements of a fire plan? We are saying at a minimum, we should be able to list all the major fire hazards, everything that can lead to fire in the space. We should ensure that even hazardous materials are properly listed and how we want to undo those materials are spelled out. All right. We should also state how we want to control the accumulation of combustible and flammable materials in the building. So there must be a procedure. Whether these materials are actually waste or they're meant for storage, we need to have a clear chart on how we want to control this material. Then the maintenance of the fire protection equipment like the detection system and the sprinkler system must be called out. So we should know how we want to protect these systems. So once they want to protect or maintain them, always saying, okay, so what's the maintenance plan? Which organization who is your service provider? How much does it come? Does it have a contract? Do you have a contract with him? Or do you want to be issuing PO to him? Is the budget approved and things like that? So you need to have a regular plan in place. Then, of course, who is responsible for maintaining the equipment? So we need to know who are those people that are responsible. They should be even published, if possible. Just have them have their pictures framed. Maybe a group. Maybe they can even have a group photograph. You have them framed and displayed within the workplace. So when there is an incident, people know who is responsible for what. And of course, we should know that this plan is a living document. So it's not just a one-off kind of thing. So we need to ensure that we review constantly and we update as situation materialize. Next slide. Can I move this screen, please? Can you please move the screen?
Sir, is this okay?
Yes, Kasmi, please, I need someone to just do this as fast as we can. Okay, so testing and maintenance.
Is the
We're not saying
network
that.
playing again? Sorry.
Oh, okay, okay. So testing and maintenance, then we're saying that all systems need to be in operational state or operable condition, except doing maintenance and repairs. And doing maintenance and repairs, I also want us to note that there could be need for us to even have a backup plan in place. What do I mean by backup plan? We may need to, so for instance, you want to impair the fire pump. By the word impair, I mean you want to disable the fire pump, so it's not going to work. So I will advise that depending on the risks that has been considered. So is there a risk of fire happening? If yes, then you may need to either maintain or repair this equipment in phases, or you have, like a backup plan, an alternative in place, such as fire truck with firemen on ground. All right. So don't just go and remove something, maybe your fire engine or some maybe a safety critical element, and under the name of maintenance, you need to do what we call issuance of impairment notice. You need to notify who need to be notified. Your insurance, your directors, who again, even all the employees, and of course the fire service, to say for the next 1 week, our fire pump will not be available due to the annual maintenance program. Is allowed. But then the question is, for that period of 1 week, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Do we want to have the fire service on ground? Do we want to stop all hot works that's going to happen within the factory or within the building premises? Do we want to notify the insurance? Of course, we need to be notified. And then maybe take the risks. We need to do what we need to do. Again, all the systems must be tested and adjusted as required. So you need to carry out the equipment test performance and ensure that you can trust that system based on functionality. Very key that only trained persons or companies are assigned to perform the maintenance. And for the maintenance, also note that fire detectors should be considered. So the cleaning or service and fire security of fire detectors also be considered. So you need to clean the dust, or let's say blow the dust, all right, and ensure that there is continuity, from the fire panel, for every single zone of the smoke detectors. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Is it the network? Hello? Hello, Baraka, are you on this call?
Sir, can you see her screen now?
Okay, yes. Okay. For the fire detection system, basically the smoke detector, the alarm panel, and of course, all the ancillary components that's going to make this work, from the glass, from the break glass to the bell to this alarm sounder, and of course, master blaster and things like that. We need to ensure that they are protected from corrosion. So for in most cases now, they even come in IP65 rated components, so meaning that it can actually be placed outdoor without fear of of corrosion. But we should ensure that even where we are placing this equipment, um, guarantee some level of protection, from corrosion, from direct contact with water or rain, and of course, not come in contact again with corroded iron or metal pipe, right? So again, we should ensure that they are protected from mechanical or physical impacts. Don't go and have your panel positioned in a place where the guinea boom or the genie boom or the maybe work elevated platform can eat or can collide, with this equipment. And of course, they need to be, supported, independently during installation. Next slide, please. Just go to the next slide. Can you move this slide, please? Okay. Response time is actually key in firefighting. We don't also appreciate the fact that we need to then wait all day before we can have people respond to fire. So it is key that we're able to operate, so we're able to identify or detect this fire on time, then control and operate the execution elements on time, so that we can actually have the fire under control. But even of higher importance is that people should be able to evacuate from the endangered zone as early as possible. So we won't come here and say, oh, maybe 5 minutes or 3 minutes or what have you. Yes, all these set times might be good, but again, it depends on the size of the location, on the complexity of the location, on the number of employees or workers or personnel that will be on site, visitors and things like that. So you can't always say this is exactly the number of minutes you should take, but you need to then set a standard for yourself. What do I mean? You determine the time that it takes to evacuate your building based on historical performance. So you need to carry out drills multiple times, especially if you have not done this before, and you keep timing yourself. So let's say the first time it took about 10 minutes, that's the baseline, more than 10 minutes, but we can work towards, we can work towards a lesser time. Then the next time you have the drill, you do 8 minutes, then 8 minutes become your new baseline as per that time, until you determine over time, the number of minutes it takes so for people to evacuate. But one basic trick is for you to then have multiple muster points. So when I say evacuate, is the time the last person gets to the muster point, not the time the first person gets to the muster point. So you can actually, because the guy is on the ground floor, is making a phone call, or is actually at his desk, and he had sound alarm, he left everything he was doing, and he was at the muster point right away. Less than 30 seconds, fantastic. But actually the time it took the last person to appear at the muster point, that's the response time, right? So you need to work towards breaking it down, making sure that you achieve a shorter response time every time you carry out the drill. So one method you can use again is to have multiple muster points. So there is no law that says that your muster point must be at the gate. In fact, in some cases, the entrance gate may even be the most hazardous area. So if you are into logistics and vehicles actually drive in and out of that gate, be sure that if a vehicle should fail brake, it might just collide, it can actually run into the muster point. So muster point is the safest point at the moment within the facility. So which you then need to determine using the hazard identification metrics. Yesterday we spoke about hazard extensively. All you need to do is to say, okay, do we have this? So you've got different spaces, empty areas within your facility. Then you can then say, okay, what is the hazard or what are the hazards around this area? Can people gather around here? How many people is this going to contain? Then before you know it, you can decide to have 3, 4, 5 muster points. Then through education, remember fire prevention via education. Through education, you let people know, oh, if you walk on the left wing of the first floor, please, in case of fire, go to muster point A. If you walk on the right wing, go to muster point B. If you do this on the ground floor, please go to muster point C. And we can have multiple muster points, of course, which also means that you have to have multiple responders, which also means that you have to have multiple, head count guys, communication can be the same, search can be the same, but of course, firefighting and head count need to be increased. So people that take the head count, that's the role assignment, need to increase because now you have multiple muster points. But that's a way you can use to achieve shorter response time, which is the goal of this slide. Next slide, please. Okay. And here we're talking of location, number, and spacing of fire detectors. I will leave you to NFPA 13. Yes, NFPA 13 has told us that 9 by 9, 9 meter by 9 meter area, you need to have at least one smoke detector. But again, there are some other, conditions, all right, such as having a beam. So if there is a beam, then it changes, the dynamics of the design. All right. If the smoke, if the material stored in that area is either light material or heavy material, meaning that is either a less hazardous material or a more hazardous material, then the number of smoke detectors will also change. So I will leave this to allow, for design specific situations. So when we have the layout of that building, then we can determine, okay, what do we need to put in place? So the architectural drawing of the building, of course, will pass to the M&E guys who can then, properly do a design to say, okay, so we need to have this amount of smoke detectors here, of course, based on the hazard in the room, based on the area coverage, and of course, based on even the occupancy. The truth of the matter is, if a space is not occupied and you decide to put lesser smoke detectors there, you might actually be endangering that space, because even if there is a fire, that means that fire needs to build up before the smoke detector can sense or detect that fire, which then takes longer time to fight. All right. So there are a lot of dynamics into the engineering design for smoke detectors, but basically we use the NFPA 13 for sprinkler and then NFPA 72 for the fire detectors. Next slide, please. Is that the last slide? I don't think so. Okay. So I think I've mentioned NFPA. I think I mentioned NFPA 13. So let's move, please. Let's move, please. Okay. So the acceptance test for this, and what we're just saying is that even after this installation has been completed, especially for the sprinkler system or hydrant system, you need to carry out the site acceptance test, the SAT, which include the hydrostatic pressure testing of the pipes, just to ensure that the pipe does not burst. So the installer, the operator needs to actually test that pipe, they need to flush on the underground connection, so they can do pigging, just to ensure that there is no blockage. Nothing was left, within even a pipe, and of course that the drain facility is well connected, that the dry pipe valve is working, of course wet pipe valve has to be working. So when all these have been completed and done, so you can use this acceptance test for both maintenance and of course for fresh installation, just to be sure that you have everything covered as it should. Next slide. And here we're just looking at the sprinkler head. Again, this is an NFPA standard, requirement, which may not be what you want to, just do. But we put it here to say that there is minimum spacing based on the umbrella that will be formed from the sprinkler head that has been selected, based again on the material that needs to be protected. So what are we even protecting within this space? So how much water coverage do we need? And this, again, everything goes back to the hydraulic calculation. So now you want to even know the size of pump or something, then you need to know, the farthest distance of the sprinkler head, from the pump itself. And of course, you also want to understand at what flow rate, what's the volume of water you need per time, and again, that depends on the material that is being stored or that is being protected. So a lot of things come into this calculation, and we can then select this for you. But of interest, if you zoom on these peaks, the lower sprinkler head is something that looks like a red, that is like a red glass. So that is actually the sprinkler head, breakable glass that actually, short circuit. So when the heat is high, say 60 degrees C or 70 degrees C, depending on the sprinkler head that you bought, this glass will break. And as it breaks, it short circuits and sends a signal to the pump to start work. The pump starts work and water is released onto this line. So the pressure is pushed into the line because it's already filled with water, and water starts spraying from this sprinkler, and then you have that coverage that you need. Next slide, please. Okay, so yesterday we spoke extensively around the risk assessment. So we are just recapping here to say, what is the severity of the harm that will be caused by the hazard? How can this hazard even cause the harm? So there is a welding work, and of course, who is a source, who is an hazard? All right, welding is an hazard because it's an activity that can cause harm. But in relation to fire, it's actually the spark from the welding, the naked flame from the welding that can cause harm, that can result in fire. So it's now saying that how can this hazard cause harm? Meaning that what are those unpleasant things that need to come together? And basically from the fire triangle, it is just the flammable material. So flammable material like diesel or what have you, or even cotton, need to just be available, and that's the likelihood. So here we're saying, okay, for us to assess the fire, we need to understand how it will emanate, how this fire is going to start, what's the likelihood, which is the possibility or probability, and what is the severity of the potential harm that will be caused by the welding activity itself, or by the hazard that we might have identified. Next slide, please. Okay. So still the same thing, establish the operating context, identify the hazards, analyze the risks, the likelihood, and the impact, evaluate and prioritize risks for further actions, because at times you may have a lot of things and you need to go with the prioritization metrics, meaning that what should we do first? What should we do next? Based on the resource available. All right. Then identify different or several options to tackle that risk, then implement the best option using the available resource. That's like I've mentioned before, we don't have money for everything, but you need to go with a risk assessment, understand your biggest challenges and tackle them. Next slide, please. So same thing like we said yesterday, hierarchy of controls, eliminate substitution or elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administration or administrative control, and of course, the use of PPE. So here we need to eliminate the hazard, or if you can't, substitute the hazard, or if you can't, engineer the hazard via guarding or isolation. If you can't, you have to. The first three, you have to do one. All right. Then you can then support with administrative control, which has to do with training, policy, recruitment process, supervision, information, instruction, etc. Then issue the right PPE to the persons. And where CPE is required, the collective protective equipment is issue same, such as fire extinguishers, safety catch nets, and what have you. Next slide, please. Okay. So in carrying out your risk assessment, we're saying that you need to document all similar findings by stating the person that might be harmed, and of course, measures to control the hazard. So mitigation. So we're still saying the same thing. How do you mitigate? And in doing this, you need to consider that you've properly checked the hazard and you understand the risks involved, that you've investigated thoroughly who or what is involved or might be affected, that all significant hazards of note have been noted down. Now, the safety precautions that are being taken are actually reasonable, sufficient, and adequate. That the after risk is as low as reasonably practicable. That every employee sees safety and in fact fire safety as their own, and they own it, and that they're involved in the process. Then we give priority to actions or situations based on their severity. And we keep tab of the long-term solutions that we need to implement. Next slide. Please, I've mentioned this before, fire drill and exercises need to be carried out. Not just because we need to test the system, which is actually the number one aim of a drill. Test the system working. Do we just have this alarm? Is the alarm functional? If the alarm is sounded, will people respond? If people respond, where will they go to? They go to the muster point. What's going to happen there? All right. After the muster point activity, what's then going to happen? You need to test the system. You need to understand that people understand. All right. You need to confirm So a joule is as you are, we call it a joule, so like a mock exam. You are testing the system, you're testing the availability, the functionality, the reliability, the responsiveness, and of course, the continuity of the business based on the fire system that you have in place. Next slide. So we've mentioned the alarm system the other time, right? Saying that it's going to help detect fire at the incident stage, warn people, ensure they evacuate. You know, we've got the call points and things like that. So just go on, please. So this is just talking about the function. So please, you can read this up, all right? But essentially, we've spoken around NFPA 72. We've spoken around having a call point, having a panel, having addressable conventional. I think I've said a lot of things on this call today. Next slide, please. Even having the heat detector at the kitchen or cooking area. I've spoken around the addressable and conventional. Next slide. I've said this earlier. Yeah. Next slide, please. I have just 5 minutes left. Next slide. Okay, I've spoken about the sprinkler system, right? Talking about the NFPA, even describing the heat bulb on the sprinkler head, right? Next slide. Let me see what I've not touched. So I can do that in 5 minutes. Can go to the exhibition. Go to the next slide, please. You were there. Slide 37, please. Okay. So initially I was telling you, yeah. So I was telling you this earlier on, all right, about the American system of naming the classes of fire. You know, having the class A, which is solid, B, which is liquid, C, which is gaseous, right? Class D, burning metal, combustible metals. So the only difference is that there is no class E. E stands for electricity, which is just an ignition source. So E is not okay now. E is not a class of fire. So there's not like class E. You know, we all have fire due to electricity, but there is a class F in the UK, which is animal fat, which in the US is now replicated as class K. All right, but can you please go to the next slide? But what we are just saying is that whatever the class, we need to have the right extinguishers in place. Yesterday, I did speak to, you know, these 5 extinguishers, the CO2, DCP, so carbon dioxide, dry chemical powder, you know, the foam extinguisher, the water extinguisher, and of course, the wet chemical extinguisher. And by color code, they are identified, you know, by the color you're looking at here. So CO2 is actually black. The new cylinders, but the new convention now is that all fire extinguishers are actually red in color. All of them, they're actually color red. So how do we distinguish a CO2 from a DCP? Is the color coding. By the neck of the bottle of that cylinder, if it's color black, then it is CO2. If it's color blue, it is DCP, dry chemical powder. If it is cream, it is foam. If it is color red, so it's blended with the bottle, it is water cylinder. And if it is yellow, it is wet chemical. CO2 is good on fire due to electrical source, like the panel. And of course, CO2, you know, can also work, you know, within the building for some other kind of fire, like class C, like the gaseous fire, because the CO2 is introduced into the space to displace the oxygen that is present in that fire. So CO2 is just working the other way as oxygen So it's going to ensure that the fire does not have adequate or enough oxygen to blossom. All right. And that's why, again, we say CO2 is preferred indoor, not just because it's not going to leave dirt. So it's a clean gas, so to say. But if you use CO2 outdoor, you use it outside, because of the breeze, the quantity or the amount of oxygen available in the open door or in the open area is actually much. So it's not going to make your CO2 to be effective. All right. So CO2 is good indoor and it's good on fire caused by electricity and or gaseous fire because of displacements. A dry chemical powder is good on class A, which is solid fire, paper, foam, or what have you. Class B, which is of course fire due to liquid like petrol, diesel. Class C, fire due to what kind of gaseous elements. All right. So a dry chemical powder will actually do justice to those three classes of fire. You get. So for a class D, you may still use a DCP, but that's for compatible metal, but it's not the preferred. It's not the preferred extinguisher. All right. So we call a dry chemical powder a general use or general purpose extinguisher, because basically class ABC is what we see oftentimes as sources or causes of fire that happen, in the workspace and in the workplace. All right. The foam itself, that one is good on class B. So fire due to petrol or what have you, a class B. So is the chemical foam, just like the aqueous film foaming solution. What it does is that it breaks the chemical composition of the foil, and of course the foil then is not as active as what it is, and the ignition temperature. Remember that fire triangle? We spoke about the ignition source or temperature. We spoke about the oxygen and of course the combustible material. So if you use a class B, so which is the foam, on a petrol or diesel, it's going to disintegrate. It's going to break the chemical bond, of the hydrocarbon, and of course, the petrol won't be in the correct flammable state, and fire will then go off. Of course, water is good on class A. You don't even need to have it as extinguisher. Just pour water on paper or table or chair or wood that is on fire, or foam or cotton or what have you, then the fire will go. It works by better what we call cooling. Maybe I need to drop this again. So because we have the three sides of the triangle, we also have three method of extinguishing fire, or three theories behind the fire extinguishing itself. So you have what we call the cooling method, which is what water does. It brings down the temperature of the fire. It cools the temperature. All right. We have what we call the starvation method. When you starve somebody, you deny the person of food, which is when you remove the burning material away from the fire. So I know when our mothers want to, if they're cooking with wood, firewood, when they want to actually wrap down that fire, they withdraw or they remove the wood from the fire, then they wet with water. So they do a combination of starvation, removal of the fuel from the fire, and cooling of the temperature via water. Then of course fire will actually go off. Then the third one is what we call the smoothing method. When you deny the fire of oxygen, when you place a layer of foam or chemical material over the fire so that oxygen cannot penetrate. So these are the things that these extinguishers actually do, and that make them work. If that's the science behind the extinguishers. And of course, the wet chemical also help with the animal fats, which is the class F in the UK, and it brings down the temperature. So please, can we just press the next buttons, and let me see if there's anything I missed. Next, please. Make it snappy. I need to have an hard stop. Just keep going. I've explained dry chemical powder. Yeah. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, audit here. Okay, so Oswil works same way with maybe fire hydrants that you have outside. The difference, so you have the landing valve, that's the hydrant system outdoor. Hose reel is actually indoor. So that's circular, that red, how do I describe this now? So let me see what is on this picture. Okay, fantastic. Just beneath, yeah. Okay. So that's beneath this picture, you see the doesn't look like a drum, that round drum with hose, that's the hose that you actually have in the building. So what it does is that it helps with access to water. So like I said, for class A, so in a place where you have fire, class A fire mostly, like in the office where you have wood, chairs, and everything. So an hose drill will be effective, right? And we've also mentioned that this should be inspected at a minimum every 6 months. All right. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, so raising alarm, you can actually use the core points on the wall, attached to the panel. So there you see a red box, small box by the wall. Use the core point, you can actually break the glass, the alarm will sound. You can actually trigger the alarm from the panel, or you can just shout with your mouth. There is no hard and fast rule on how you need to raise an alarm. The good thing is that the alarm is raised and people are notified that there is fire. Please, that is very key for us. So remember again that you need to call the fire service, 767 or 112 if you're in Lagos, 615 if you're in Ibadan, and the fire service guys will attend to you. They'll pick the call and they'll tell you what you need to do. Even when there is fire and it's true that it's electrical, please, all you need to do is to shut down power, switch off the generator, take out, just knock off the power. So your engineering guys or engineering services guys or your utility guys or maintenance guys, whatever you call them, are key to your fire safety. They need to know when to shut down the generators. They need to know when to shut off the panels, to prevent, fire from being spread within the facility. All right. And that's why it is good also to have emergency lights within your premises. So if there is an emergency and we decide to take off power, it's not again safe for the building to be dark, to be left in dark. Then that becomes an issue and people bring out their phone and use that. No. So if you have emergency light installed, this is also a safety critical element. Please, we need to also maintain that. Next slide, please. I think our time is over, but let me see if there's any. I think we have just maybe 5 slides. Let me see if there's anything I need to tell you within those 5 slides. Please, we need to be fast for this. Okay, yeah, I think I've mentioned the emergency lights. I just mentioned now. I didn't even know it was on the next page. Okay, so we need to ensure that these lights set the right direction. It's not taking us back into the building, but it's taking us out of the building, and the lights are functional. The signages are correct. The lights are functional. Now, during the fire drills, you have tested this, and when I say tested, I mean would have decided to even off the power supply to the emergency light and see whether these things are actually working. So they are actually, this information is actually key for us. And please don't go back into the building unless the incident commander has told you to do so. Leave your personal belongings and let's move out of the building. Next slide, please. I think we are almost done. Okay. Again, we've spoken about the extinguishers, but I just want to repeat that you need to ensure that you know how to use the extinguisher by pulling the pin, aiming at the base of the fire, squeezing the lever, and swinging from side to side. Please, you can watch this on YouTube on how to just type how to use a portable fire extinguisher on YouTube, and you get the right information. All right, I think we've come to the end of class. Let me just see the next slide. I think it's safe to close. You can always read up whatever is left. Okay. Okay, so using government agencies, and I think I've mentioned 767-112 multiple times on this call. 615, you are in your state, is the same thing. Please ensure you do all you need to do. Familiarize yourself with the fire service, visit their location, know where they are. If possible, have a personal relationship with them. Please don't bribe, but please have a personal relationship with them. Visit, take their numbers. You can keep in touch. Just because you might need their help, and calling 767 blah 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 may be a long route. You may need to just have a personal call to the state commander or to division commander, and the guy can actually just send the fire team to your facility. Remember again, fire drill is important. If you have disabled persons within your facility or physically challenged people, please have a plan for them. Have a plan for them by ensuring that there is a body system. Somebody go to fetch them when there is a problem. You position them or you place them on the ground floor so they can actually wheel themselves out of the facility. If the person is visually challenged, then it actually needs either a vibrating element or even someone that has been assigned as a body. Thank you. I think it's safe to end the class this way. If you have one or two questions, you may just ask, then we can call it a day. Thank you so much. Questions, please. Are there no questions? Hello?
Okay, I have a question, sir. Okay, at the beginning, you talked about having a materials that's maybe as an interior designer or as an architect or builder, having your materials maybe fire resistant to a certain degree. Okay, so let me use the instance of an interior designer. Some of the materials you use, like wallpaper and some other things, cotton or fabric, there isn't any specifications on those materials to say that the fire resistant ability is for 1 hour or 2 hours. Here in Nigeria, I know abroad you have those things. So how do we work around that here in Nigeria?
So it's just for you to just look at the existing hazard. So if you are going to be having fireworks, for instance, is an event. Let me even tell you for free. At my wedding event, I think, if I'm not mistaken, one with decorative material actually nearly caught fire. Of course, I was alert, dancing, and I saw that, and I have to just match that and quit the fire. So what I'm trying to say is, looking at the hazard in that space should determine the kind of advice you give to your clients. The clients may not even know what is the right thing to do, but you just have an idea of what he or she wants the space to look like. So if you're going to have, fireworks, blah, 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 and someone is telling you to also put maybe the curtains or the clothing material for decoration and everything. So I think we should be able to just give some professional advice, but we should go with, we don't really have standards in Nigeria, quote and unquote. So we should go with the hazards in that. So what is the activity? So you just use your professional mind to determine the activity, to examine the activity that's actually going to happen. Then that can determine the things you need to do and make sure that there is minimal fire loading in that space. All right. But clearly there is no stand in Nigeria. If you go online and check the Grenfell towers in the UK, it was actually a big issue, because they just came with that modification, more like now interior now, an exterior designer, and the building actually failed. The building caught fire. Grenfell towers, in the UK, 2019 or 2018, something crazy. All right.
Okay. I think I remember that incident.
that caught fire
Hello,
because
good
of design. Yeah, tell me, please. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. My name is Kyle Amali. I just want
Tell
to
me,
ask
sir.
about
Good evening.
the. Good evening. I want to ask about the FM 200. You didn't mention anything about FM 200.
Yeah, so FM 200 is an inert gas. Yes, is used to protect sensitive areas like the IT room, the server room, to be precise. Yes. And so same. So it's not an NFPA design, yes, but of course, it's very effective. Whether it is even Argonite, FM 200, CO2 protection, which one again? Argon protection. These things actually work well. You know, even nitrogen gas, they actually work well. But FM 200 is more popular within the space. I may have to say on this call that if you use FM 200 in your space, please, that room should not be occupied by a human being. Because if there is accidental discharge of FM 200, so it's used in the panel room and of course the DBS. So if there's, what is DBS? I mean, the digital business solution, the IT room, the server room.
Yes, server room.
Yeah. So if the FM 200 is discharged mistakenly, it will knock off oxygen, and the person, so that be as affiliation. So the person will not be able to breathe well, and that might be the end of such person. So please, if you have an FM 200 in use, kindly also ensure that people are not within that space. Yeah, but it's a good one. Thank you. FM 200 is a good one. Okay. Any other question before we close? Okay, Baraka, I think the class is.
Yes, thank you very much, Akolapo. So in the absence of no question, I would like to thank you so much for the enlightening session. I really appreciate your support. Thank you. See you on Friday. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, sir.
This kind of stupidity. Nigeria. See anything they put inside you. This country now, wow. What is the ground? Just ground, put inside. You remove that, you put up behind. I'm not going to ask you what happened. You look there. Go a day. We'll pay your salary next week. I'll be fine.